Remember, for a long time, the system didn't require terrorism. For a long time, the system required an enemy. For a long time, that was the Soviet Union.
The Cold War.
The Cold War, right? And then communist was the word for terrorism. When the Soviet Union collapsed, okay, what was going to then take the place of the enemy to justify 50 cents of every federal tax dollar going to the military-industrial complex? Okay, people just don't realize how much of their tax dollars go towards the military, goes towards the military-industrial complex.
Sure, and our friends at the National Priorities Project do a very good job of actually breaking that down. We're speaking with Sut Jhally, Executive Director of the Media Education Foundation and University of Massachusetts professor. Over the last few years, we've seen the movement or the voices that want to offer critiques of 9/11 associated with the 9/11 conspiracy theorists, those who have claims, a variety of claims, including that thermite paint was being used inside of the World Trade Center for years to make it more flammable so that then the buildings would come down. Building 7, which we often hear about, that it's the Jews, that it's Bush and Cheney personally who allowed 9/11 to happen. Has this put your movie, Hijacking Catastrophe, in a negative light in some cases? Has it been difficult for you to unlink your critique and these conspiracy theories that abound?
It has been difficult. And people have put them together. Like the New Yorker did a series, or did a piece on these movies, and included Hijacking Catastrophe as one of these conspiracy films. I mean, for me, the most frustrating thing is that, over the past decade, the amount of energy, the amount of political energy that has been sucked into that movement and being sucked into these trying to answer these unanswerable questions. There are questions about 9/11. There is no doubt, and we need to figure out a way to ask them and to figure out how to answer them. And what the so-called conspiracy movement or the so-called truthers. I hate the term truthers because it implies the rest of us aren't interested in the truth.
Right.
Actually, I consider myself a 9/11 truther, but what I want to see is, what I want to look at is, okay, how was 9/11 used since it happened to then justify this incredible expansion of the military, this incredible retraction in our civil liberties? I think that should be the real truth movement.
Which is a very separate question from was Building 7 a controlled demolition?
It's a very separate question. If I was Bush, and if I was the neoconservatives, whatever, that's the question I'd want people to focus on. It's an unanswerable question. And these people must probably, it's like the Kennedy assassination people. 50 years later, they're still trying to figure out who assassinated Kennedy. It's a total waste of energy and total waste of people's resources.
So what do you say to those who would point out to you, well, hold on a second, there is evidence that does bring up what appear to be legitimate questions about Building 7. Your question is good, your critique is good, but why are we just ignoring all of those things? Because not all the questions are answered. Why is it really a waste of time if we are to believe that there is something to find out?
Well, as long as that question is asked within a whole frame of a whole bunch of other questions as well, which is it's not just about that one day. And I know the temptation. When I first, I'm not too sure if you took my class at that time, but in fact, when I remember I read almost the first book the first American book on this, because it was David Ray Griffin's book, The New Pearl Harbor, and it's compelling because it tells a story. Here are these unanswered questions. Why did this happen? Why weren't the planes shot down? Why did Building 7 collapse? What happened to the steel that was left over? Why was it moved out so quickly? And I remember actually, when I first got it, when I first looked at this, it made total sense. In fact, I did a lecture on it, where a lot of people were very upset actually that I was asking these kinds of questions. And then actually I heard a debate between David Ray Griffin and a guy called Chip Berlay on Democracy Now! And the moment you start to get into a debate, and the moment you start to kind of open up some of these assumptions, you realize it's like a house of cards. And so the moment this debate started happening, I realized, oh, wow, I essentially bought this story too quickly. And I think for many people, they bought the story and they've never changed. Once you bought the story, so it's like
the initial questions are compelling enough.
And people, it's like faith. It's you kind of just have, once you bought it, then because there are no answers to it. That's the thing. There aren't, and that's the beauty of it, is that the questions are important. You have to answer the questions, but there are no answers to it.
We've been speaking with Sut Jhally, Executive Director of the Media Education Foundation. The screenings are on September 11th at Smith College in Northampton's Wright Hall. 2 p.m., Hijacking Catastrophe. 4 p.m., War Made Easy. You will be there with Vijay Prashad answering questions.
Yes.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Sure. My pleasure.